and I discovered this pair of coins that were struck together at the same time. So when I say I discovered it, it's not like I had a time machine and went back in time and discovered these things. I very along with everybody else, had every chance in the world to see these things at auction. I saw that there was something unusual about them. Everyone else missed the fact that they were a very specific type of coins that were struck on top of each other, and that's where their value was. So it was more the rarity than anything else that really appealed to me than the value. Because in the United States, we focus a lot on the value of things, but other places in the world focus on the aesthetic of things, that they're beautiful, that they're rare, they're unique, they're exciting, they're attractive. In the United States, we focus almost exclusively on value when it comes to collectibles, and we lose out as a result. I mean, the Europeans are deeply interested in aesthetics, where we're interested in value. It's just a cultural affect, much to our much to our disintegration as a culture in some ways.
So I know you always hear about like people counterfeiting like the paper money, right? I'm guessing it's too hard to counterfeit coins. They're probably not worth the worth
Well,
the work to
both
do, right?
both are hard, right? If you and I decide today that we want to become counterfeiters, which I think is a bad idea, we're gonna have a hard time. The paper is unique. The printing process is unique and quite extensive and intricate. We're not going to be able to make bills the way people think that they can. That's why they get caught and go to prison. Coins is even tougher because you've got to make the planchets, the blanks. You've got to come up with the dies. You have to have a machine that the dies fit into that strikes the coins. And then those struck coins have to be struck at a pressure that makes them look authentic and fills the design of the die. This is not easy to do. So let's not, of all the things we might talk about and do today, let's not become counterfeiters. I think it's a bad idea.
Yeah, I watched a show on CNN. I can't remember the name, but it's this lady. She goes like all these different bad people. Like she'll go like see smugglers, drug smugglers, whatever. One time, the episode of I think it was a country in Peru, like how they counterfeit money, right? The whole process, right? It was like really I hate to say interesting because I don't like encourage anyone, but like it was very like man, like this is some deep scientific stuff they're
It
trying
can be
to do.
fascinating. I mean, it can be fascinating, right? I mean, we watch movies like Catch Me If You Can and movies about people who've lived lives of crime, not because we want to be them, but because it's fascinating and we're glad we're not them, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day, we don't want to be in prison and or on the run from the law, but it can be interesting to read about how counterfeiters take these risks and do these things. I
yeah,
mean, show like Narcos was interesting to people, not because they wanted to become Pablo Escobar, but because they were glad they weren't him, and they
exactly, yeah.
watch from afar.
Because
So
I always thought counterfeiters, like they're kind of fake, like maybe copy dollar bills, print like they had like I mean it's like really scientific stuff they were doing, right?
this is
Like
scientific.
whoa, like yeah,
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 and I can't speak with authority because I'm not a counterfeiter. Neither are you, and we
no,
won't be one today. But the point is that a lot goes into the making of coins, and a lot goes into the making of bills that people don't realize. There's even like I mentioned the paper. I mean, the paper that our bills are printed on is a very special type of paper. There's fibers woven into it to prevent counterfeiting. It's not like the U.S. government has an amazing contract with FedEx Kinkos. You know what I'm saying? And they're doing these things by the hundreds of thousands of reams as they're
uh,
making $500 bills.
yeah,
It's a lot to it. So,
yeah.
yeah,
And so I think I saw a picture of you on the internet somewhere where we went skydiving.
I did. I went
Can you talk
skydiving.
about that? Was that recently or a long time
It was
ago?
2 years ago, and
Can
it
you
was
talk about
amazing.
that? That's the first
Absolutely.
time you went.
Yeah, it was the first time I ever went.
That's my bucket list. I want to go skydiving.
I highly recommend it. There's some things that I recommend you not do, counterfeiting.
Yeah,
There's some things I recommend you do
yeah.
skydiving. So I made a promise to myself that I would go skydiving at some point in my life. I think that a lot of people have that as a bucket list item. So I decided I wanted to go skydiving, and I went up to Snohomish. There's a number of places that do skydiving in the Pacific Northwest, and I went up to a place in Snohomish, and I got I was really scared because I had put it off for a year, put it off for another year, and finally went up and I was like, am I really going to do this?
Did you go by
I
yourself?
went by myself.
Okay. See, I would do the same thing because I'd be afraid I would chicken out. If I was with my friends and family, I'd chicken out from my friends and family. If I chicken out, I want to be there by myself.
That's right. And you'd come up with any excuse too. So let's say you walk in with your cousin Larry, and all of a sudden Larry's like, you know what? I kind of got a headache. You'd go, okay, cool. Let's not do this today. So I went up skydiving by myself, and I walk in and you fill out an extensive disclaimer that's not just like, hey, you're going to be on the Jason Cavness experience. You might get your microphone might hit you in the face by accident, or you'll spill water in your lap. It was like you could die getting into the plane, getting out of the plane, falling from the plane, thinking about the plane. It was not an easy read, right? But you have to check them all off, like you're forgiven, you're forgiven. And then you can get on the plane, and the plane is a plane about the size of this room. It's a tiny plane. So as you're going up in this plane, you're thinking, I might not survive the plane ride, but everyone else has, so maybe I will. And then I was in kind of the back as people are skydiving out before me, and you could go at 10,000 feet or 13,500. And I opted, I figured 13,500. If I'm going to fall to my
I
death,
mean, you're
what
there anyway, right? Let's go all
yeah,
out.
if it's 57 feet or 13,500, if I'm going to die, I'm going to die. So I decided to just sit in the back and let all these other people jump. And as they were jumping, and falling and skydiving, the pilot wasn't reporting as we climbed up higher that anyone had died. So I'm like, these people have managed to survive. So maybe I will too. And all the apprehension and terror, which you will feel when you do it, I expect, builds up, builds up, builds up. You're sitting in the doorway, and then all of a sudden it's go time. A light turns green, and you're out the door. And the second you're out the door, that's the least scary part of it, which is amazingly counterintuitive. You'd think that you'd be screaming like a wild baby all the way down. And instead, you go out the door, and as you start to free fall at 100 miles an hour, 120 miles or whatever it is, and you're like a meteor zooming through space, the first thought that went through my mind is, oh my gosh, here I am. Because there's no alternative. It's not like, I changed my mind. I'm going to go to the store and buy, some apples. No, you're literally falling out of a plane.
And you do it with the instructor tied to your back, right?
Exactly. It's tied to your back, and you're falling through space and time at 100 miles an hour. And the ground is beneath you, and it's completely overwhelming. And it's unlike any intense thing that might happen day to day, meaning our conversation might be heightened and intense and awesome, but we're not going to be I like the Imperial March ringtone, because it felt that ominous before I jumped out of the plane. But when I finally did jump out, the fear goes away, because then you're just falling, and you just put your faith in whatever you put your faith in, and then there you go, you're falling through space and time. And the free fall is about a minute. It goes by very quickly, and then they pull the ripcord, and you're floating, floating, floating. You make it down to the earth, and you've survived. And here you are to live to tell the tale. But I would highly recommend um, jumping out of an airplane. If it's on your bucket list, I would highly recommend it.
My fear would be, I think we like, I'm sure it doesn't happen. Like, you're in the doorway, they push you out. I'm afraid, like, I would like try to fight back, right? Like, no, I'm not going right.
So what they said was that only one or two people that they remembered landed with the plane, meaning it said, I'm not getting out of the plane. I'm not doing this. They said that it's very, 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 very rare. And I think,
Okay.
yeah,
And if you say you don't want to go there, or they say, okay, come back.
well, yeah, I mean, if you say, I'm not going, as far as they're concerned, they got your whatever it is, $300 to,
Yeah,
to go up.
yeah.
So they're fine. They don't want to force you into a heart
Yeah.
attack. But I'm sure a lot of people are like, I don't know, I don't know. And they kind of coax you along, because they know that 999 million times out of a whatever, that you're not going to be dead.
Or they probably do, like suppose I was going first. I said, I don't want to go. I'll go back. And then some like 15-year-old girl, like, 95-year-old old lady went right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing.
And the ego kicks in.
Well, that's right. People of all ages go, and the people before you are from all walks of life too, and they jump out of the plane, and you think to yourself, it's impossible